Kevin Samuels even talk about the difference between high value men isn't money, but often is the other attributes, as in men who can control their sexual, drive.
Like dick discipline, that's what he says, right?
Dick discipline. Yeah. Yo, what's up, YouTube? My name is Chisha Zed. I am back in here with another episode of Chisha Zed and Friends. I'm here with Pearl, everybody. Welcome.
Thanks for having me back.
Good. You're over there at the gym, you said, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Getting in that work. It's good for you to join us even though you're in your car, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this video is in response to a post that I saw from the Shade Room by Keri Hilson. Now, if you're unfamiliar with who Keri Hilson is, she's a singer, songwriter, American singer-songwriter. Have you heard of her songs?
Who doesn't know who Keri Hilson is? My name is Keri,
Yeah. I'm assuming I'm going to get somebody who's been like, who is this chick anyways? You know what I mean? So here you go. Musician, and she posted something that I wasn't expecting to get as much attention as it did. But seeing as like the culture right now is really obsessed with like conversation of relationships, which is great because, channels like this talk about that. And I'm going to read what she posted on what I believe was her Twitter, right? She said, men who provide emotional security and display wise leadership will get the softest, most feminine, relaxed, trusting, guard down, submissive, nurturing version of their women. And of course, the post had like 500,000 likes and a bunch of women in there going, yeah, that's great, that's perfect, which I'm surprised because two things I was thinking about. I was like, what does she actually mean by that, right? Because a lot of times like a woman will say something and you have to translate it into something we call like womanese. Like, what is she actually saying? You know what I mean? Because if I said it, I feel like I would just get heat for it. But go ahead.
Well, when I heard it, I actually didn't even know what she was talking about. So, like, when I saw it before you, like, circled the post and you were, like, going on your little, like, interpretation of it, I thought it was very vague and I did not know what she was talking about.
Got you. So, what I got from it, right, is she's saying, hey, in order for me to be nurturing, feminine, submissive, all the things that like we say men want, a man first has to be, he has to prioritize like my emotional needs, right? Two problems I have with that. Number one is she skipped over what women need to do. There's 2 points when it comes to like a woman accepting her femininity that I've noticed having countless conversations with women. Is the first one, if they don't get the first one down, then everything else will be useless, right? First of all, a woman has to be willing to be in her femininity. She has to actually know that like, hey, this is a place where I should be, and a man's masculinity is leading, my femininity is playing the background. That has to be the definition. Most women don't look at it that way, right? They look at like, yes, I'll be feminine and you'll be masculine and we'll be in this partnership and we'll be on the same level. But first of all, that first thing has to be done by the woman. She has to be willing she has to be willing to be feminine. Secondly, what needs to happen is a man needs to bring masculine energy. This is where a lot of guys don't like what I have to say. A lot of guys say it's either she's feminine or she's masculine. I'm like, nah, man, chill out. A lot of the times, a lot of these guys out here are highly emotional, highly argumentative, easily stirred up, and they act like females. Now, there is a time and a place to embrace your emotion, but as a man, you've got to know that you've got to stay in that masculine and stoic stature as much as possible. What I'm trying to say is a woman can be trying to embrace her femininity, but if you come with your femininity, right, and you're emotional and you're not center and you're not calm, you let things get to you a little bit too easily, you're super argumentative, you can now drive her into her masculinity. It's the balance of those two things a lot of the times. the thing that pissed a lot of people off in my DMs is that I said, when she said emotional security, what I hear when I hear that is just like a guy that won't cheat on me.
Okay.
What made her go, I'm thinking of like she's in some type of situationship right there, and she's typing emotional security on Twitter. What I think is like, oh, give me emotional security, some guy that won't cheat on me. That's what a lot of women think that means. Emotional security cannot be what keeps a relationship strong, because emotions are fleeting. Okay.
It's funny. I actually thought I disagreed with you when I read your post, but if you mean that can't be the basis of a relationship, I actually agree with you then.
So you agree with me?
I think so. I mean, it was kind of long, so I'm not sure 100%.
Let me say this.
Like, I think women need to be feminine. Like, you can't just say that I'm only feminine for the right guy, or I'm only going to be feminine if he does this. Like, that doesn't make sense.
What I think is that women don't even get that first part down.
Yeah.
They don't get that first part of embracing their femininity. She's saying, hey, as long as you give me these things, no, it doesn't work that way. You first have to embrace your femininity. The whole thing isn't based on what a man brings to the table, right? You're giving a man that much full control over your well-being.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, that's too much, man. Your emotions cannot be the basis of a relationship. Because if we make it about your emotions, then when I hear emotional security, you're thinking, oh, yeah, he has to make me feel safe. Roughly translated, that you're going to not leave me. You're not going to not hurt me. He might cheat, ladies and gentlemen. Mm-hmm. I've said that plenty of times. Women need to learn how to work through that. I'm not saying men should cheat. And this is where people have a problem. And this is the reason I give, is that men have always not been the most monogamous creatures, as much as we've tried to use religion and all these other things to do it. Should a man be controlled by his dick? No. You shouldn't be controlled by your sexual desires. You should be able to control yourself. But in the instant that a man makes a mistake, then I think that there should be room to work those things out.
So I'm curious, do you think it's the same both ways?
No.
Really?
Yes.
So you think if a woman like cheats after kids or anything, that's like she's done?
Here's what I know to be true.
Okay.
If I ask you, what do you need to take that step with the man, right? Mm-hmm. Even outside of a relationship, what would your answer be?
What would I need to like hook up with a guy?
Yeah.
See, I hate saying this in the manosphere, but I don't like do that outside of a relationship, but nobody believes me in the manosphere. So
okay. let's say we're in a relationship. What do you need to do to hook up with the guy you're in a relationship with? What does he need to bring in order for you to be in that relationship so you can hook up with them?
I mean, in order to date a guy, like there's just like qualities that I look for.
Sex.
Oh my god, I don't know. I know
it's a tough one. I don't usually ask these questions straightforward, but this is where the truth comes, Pearly. And we need to get to the bottom of this.
In order to have sex with a guy. I mean, I look for like qualities that I admire, I guess. So, I mean, I think women tend that's more emotional. So I think that's where you're going with it, right? That it's like typically more emotional when a woman hooks up with someone.
Yes. And listen, this is not the first time I've had that response when I'm talking to like a female on the channel. I'll ask this and they'll be like, oh shit, man, why are you going to make me answer this question? I get it. You know what I mean? It's not super comfortable, especially for women, to answer this question. But the truth is, it's a list of things, right?
Yeah.
It's a man who's going to be either, of course, he's got to be physically appealing, but of course, you need good conversation. You need that connection. You need all these things, and the vibe. I hear girls talk about the vibe just needs to be right.
That's so true. That's so true.
They'll say the vibe just needs to be right.
Yeah.
That vibe they're talking about is a connection. With the man. If he has slept with the woman, it's, in most cases, he's not like, hey, I slept with her and I want to go start a whole family with her. No. But women usually confuse that when a man steps out and makes a mistake. Because the scenario I give is, what if you had a man who was otherwise perfect in everything else he did as humanly possible, right? He was a good father. He did what he's supposed to do. He provided for you and the kids. He was there emotionally, physically. And then one day he stepped out and he said, you know what? I made a mistake. Blah, blah, blah. Women today are like, fuck that. I don't want to hear nothing.
Was he honest about it, or did she find it?
Let's say she found it. And he wasn't going to repeat it, right? Even that scenario in itself, if he wasn't going to repeat it, then he fessed up to it and said, you know what? I don't actually love her. It was just something that I just, slipped up and did. And men can mean that. Why? Because he doesn't require the emotional connection that a lot of women do when it comes to sex.
I guess I'm a little more pessimistic when it comes to like human nature, maybe. I don't believe most people do things once. So if he got caught once, I highly doubt that was the only time he did it. And I highly doubt, if there's no consequences, that he would stop.
Well, everything has consequences, right? There's the lost trust between you that he would have to probably rebuild.
Right.
The bigger question here is it worth leaving him and destroying that family?
Oh, okay. I think in that case, I would probably, if I had kids with someone, I would consider staying. I would.
And like working it out.
But only if like there'd have to be some sort of like, because obviously like if you, let's say like I found you hooked up with someone over Instagram or something, right?
Yeah.
Like I'd have to be able to like check your Instagram because
Gotcha.
like now I'm going to like wonder because I found that before. So that's not really fair to me. Like to have me like put into that position. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. All I'm saying is most women, when I said what I said, they don't want, I got a lot of heat in my DMs, man. You know, most women, they don't even want to hear that. You know, they don't even want to work it out. And why do I bring this scenario up? It's because infidelity is the number one reason for divorce. Now, are men today cheating more than they did in the past? I don't think so. I think now women have the power to leave.
That's what I was going to say.
Men have always been naturally just, you know, we want to fuck everything we see. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. We see it, it looks good, we want to smash it. It's a problem sometimes, especially for men who like to get things done and are productive. It's a problem. It's not something that like men want to be, especially when they want to be focused, right? But understanding that side of a man and knowing that like, hey, this is something that can be worked out, then that wouldn't be the number one reason that women leave marriages and end up destroying families. And
so what about
prioritizing the well-being of the relationship and the family as a whole, or just your relationship should be the number one focus.
So you were saying that it's selfish because she's like putting her emotions above the family.
Yes.
Do you think in like a case like take this is just a public one that I thought of, so like Tristan Thompson and Chloe.
He's the bad example of a man who is not in control of his sexual appetite. I'm in the scenario I'm giving, and I know it's easy to want to lean towards the part of like, this guy's encouraging men to go out here and cheat on women.
Yeah.
No.
No, I'm not
men
saying
like
that.
Tristan, no, I get that all the time. And so men like Tristan Thompson, that's a man who can't control himself, has a lack of self-control. That is not a leader characteristic. You have Kevin Samuels even talk about the difference between high-value men isn't money, but often is the other attributes, as in men who can control their sexual, drive.
Like dick discipline? That's what he says, right?
Dick discipline. Yeah. Dick discipline. And to be honest with you, it's just more extreme with men of high value because they have more options. But even the common guy, he's going to fall into that once in a while. And Tristan Thompson, he's just a bad example of somebody who's just not in control of himself. He needs more discipline.
Yeah. I mean, I do think once like kids are in the mix, that does like you have to put them before you. So I definitely like could see what you're saying in terms of it being selfish. But I don't know. My biggest like what goes through my head is like the person you're in a relationship and the person you're married to, you always want to be trust and like have that like honesty, So it would just be that's like very difficult to come back from,
It is, but it's not impossible. Let me tell you a story, man. I used to be a CNA for the longest time, I worked with the elderly. So I've spent a lot of time with elderly couples. One couple, I remember like helping out. And if you don't know what CNAs do, if you're watching this video and don't know what that is, it's basically someone who takes care of like a caregiver, who take care of like the elderly and stuff. Mm-hmm. I remember dealing with a couple that had been married for 60, 70 years or something crazy like that. He was 100 years old. She was 99.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, I said, wow, that's just, to us right now, that's unheard of. Mm-hmm. Why? Because we just don't see marriages last that long, right? Mm-hmm. But we got to think, if they were married 70 years, 10 years of their marriage was complete bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, barely could stand each other. Mm-hmm. Terrible things were happening. But if 60 years was amazing, then wasn't it worth it?
Yeah.
That's what I usually think about. I look at the past and I saw these two, they were still married, they were still happy. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, yes, that's what marriage came with in the past when it used to last. And people mm-hmm. used to prioritize the unity amongst themselves, the unity amongst family. They used mm-hmm. to prioritize that over my emotional needs. And if mm-hmm. you do this to me, you're unloyal to me. But what about the kids?
No, actually, I 1,000% agree with what you're saying. I think a lot of times people don't look at things in the long run. They look at things in like the short term. And even like my parents, they were always like happier than all my friends. Like my parents never really fought. Like I remember like going to my friend's house and hearing their friends fight and like thinking that was weird. Even like there was still, even with that though, there was still like a couple years where they didn't really like each other that much, you know? But a lot of people just want to like give up just because it's like bad for a couple of years. So I actually, when I saw your post, I thought I was going to disagree with you more, just based on the way that you put it. Yeah. But actually hearing what you're saying with that it's selfish because you're leaving because you're not emotionally happy in the short term, that you won't sacrifice that for the long term, actually makes a lot of sense to me.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's always like one-sided, you know, a lot of the times. I try my best here to say, hey, you know what? A guy needs to be this way and a woman needs to be like this. It's nearly impossible to find that nowadays. What we hear a lot of the times is, oh, it's these people's fault and they're the problem, or it's men's fault, just men by themselves and they're the mm-hmm. problem. But I think men and women both have responsibilities to bring to the table. Now, this is the truth with most women. Like I said before, they don't want to do that first part, which is even that willingness to embrace their femininity. You got to be willing first. And embracing your femininity, again, means that you play the background, means that the man leads and you're second in place. And that has to be said convictedly. I don't even know if that's a word, but it has to mm-hmm. be said that way because people need to know that, like, that's what that means, you know?
What does it mean? Like, can I have an example of like playing in the background?
I would liken it to a job that you work at. Okay. When there's an issue, right, you can talk amongst yourselves and kind of see, you know, how to fix the issue. But ultimately, you're going to look to the manager. You're going to look to the supervisor. You're going to look to the boss. Mm-hmm. The man is compared to the boss in this scenario that I'm using. Okay. Now, don't confuse this with what people usually think is a tyrant. I believe in toxic masculinity mm-hmm. in this sense, right? Doing things as a man that you know you're not good at. It's about mm-hmm. efficiency at the end of the day. So you lead and know how to delegate and handle problems, solutions. Finding solutions mm-hmm. is the key. So if you're not good with budgeting as a man, you're not going to budget just because you're the man. If mm-hmm. your girl is better than you, if your wife or whatever, if she's better at mm-hmm. certain things, you're going to let her do it. Yeah. Why? Because mm-hmm. that will be the most efficient thing to do. Mm-hmm. But again, the woman needs to know that just because now she handles the spreadsheets of the budget doesn't mean that she gets to now feel like, you know, there still has to be respect mm-hmm. for the man kind of delegating that mm-hmm. thing to you. Be like, hey, you know, you're good at that, handle that. And that's what a good leader does. He makes the whole thing run the best it possibly can because at the end of the day, it's about winning. Yeah, that's very true when I think of like my parents, because a lot of times in the manosphere, like these women want these like high value men, right?
And Kevin Samuels will talk about how to get one. And now my dad's like in that, at least in, I don't know. I think some people would probably call my dad beta, and some people would say, I don't know. You know, sometimes I get confused, but.
So here's another thing about that I've said before. It doesn't matter what people call your dad.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what people call me. I'm only worried about how a woman views me.
Yeah.
Right? If your mom sees your dad as the leader, then she looks up to him. He's the alpha of that situation, of that relationship. I don't care if someone comes on here and says I'm beta. It doesn't matter. I'm not trying to date you. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to, you know, do anything with any man that's on here giving his take on me. But the woman in my life, I care whether she views me as the leader, right?
Yeah.
The alpha, because that's what matters at the end of the day. One woman could view me and say, you know what, Chisha, I like what you do. You know, you're alpha in my eyes. Another woman who's highly, let's say, religious. Let's say she's Buddhist or something like that. Oh, you don't believe in Buddha? I could be crossed off in her list based on her perception of what an alpha is, right? It's relative depending on the woman you're dealing with a lot of times, and often what they want. Some women might want a guy who's going to be strong, physically protect them, physically empowering. Some women, they're into more business types who are going to dominate within like their jobs, and they're going to have, you know, higher positions, things like that. It depends on the woman you're dealing with.
Yeah, but what you were saying about the masculine and like the feminine, when the way my mom got to like marry basically a man that's in the top probably 0.5%, maybe like 1% ish of earners, was she did hop on his train. Like she was going to be a teacher, and she quit that to go help my dad at his company.
Wow.
When he was 22, or I think she was 18 when she met him, and he was 5 years older. So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what you were saying with like the man being like the leader, you know, that was like literally exactly what my mom did. Was he had this whole company, and she stopped what she was doing, moved to him.
That's what's up. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, please do me some amazing things and like it down below. Also, leave a comment. Let us know what you thought of the conversation. Pearl, thanks so much for joining us once again.
Thanks for having me.
For sure. Hope you enjoy the rest of your like gym time over there. Guys, until next time, we'll talk soon. I'm out. Peace.